Have you ever heard of a leader who ruled a nation for over 4 decades, transforming it from one of the poorest countries on earth into Africa's wealthiest, only to meet a grisly end broadcast to the entire world? This is the story of Muammar Gaddafi, the man who called himself the brotherly leader and guide of the revolution. But was he a visionary liberator or a ruthless tyrant? Let's unravel the complex and controversial life of the man who ruled Libya with an iron fist. Our story begins not in a palace, but in a Bedouin tent in the desert near Sirte in 1942. Born into a nomadic family, Gaddafi's early life was steeped in tradition and shaped by a deep sense of Arab identity. He grew up hearing tales of Italian colonization and the struggle for independence. This upbringing instilled in him a powerful anti-colonial sentiment and a dream of a unified, powerful Arab world. As a young man, he was intelligent, ambitious, and deeply influenced by the pan-Arab nationalism of Egypt's Gamal Abdel Nasser. While studying at the military academy, Gaddafi wasn't just learning tactics, he was secretly plotting a revolution. He formed a group of like-minded young officers, the Free Officers Movement, who were determined to overthrow Libya's monarchy, which they saw as corrupt and subservient to Western interests. On September 1, 1969, while King Idris was abroad for medical treatment, the moment arrived. The 27-year-old Captain Gaddafi and his officers executed a swift, bloodless coup. They seized control of the government, and just like that, the Kingdom of Libya was no more. Gaddafi proclaimed the Libyan Arab Republic and promised a new era of freedom, socialism, and unity. The Libyan people, tired of the old regime, celebrated in the streets. Gaddafi, with his youthful charisma and revolutionary zeal, was hailed as a savior. One of his first major acts was to assert Libyan sovereignty. He demanded the immediate closure of American and British military bases on Libyan soil, a bold move that sent shockwaves through the West and announced his arrival on the world stage. With the monarchy gone, Gaddafi set out to create his own unique political system, a vision he laid out in his infamous Green Book. He rejected both capitalism and communism, proposing a third universal theory. In this system, there were no political parties, no parliament, and no constitution in the traditional sense. Instead, power was supposed to be in the hands of the people through a network of people's congresses and people's committees. He called this system Jamahiriya, or a state of the masses. On the surface, it sounded like the ultimate form of direct democracy. In reality, however, all significant power remained concentrated in Gaddafi's hands and his inner circle of revolutionary committees. Dissent was not tolerated. His Green Book became the law of the land, taught in schools and plastered on billboards across the country. At the same time, Gaddafi nationalized Libya's vast oil reserves, which had previously been controlled by foreign companies. This single act fundamentally changed Libya's destiny. The country was flooded with unprecedented wealth. Gaddafi used this oil money to fund massive social welfare and public works projects. He launched the Great Man-Made River, an incredible engineering feat that brought fresh water from underground aquifers in the Sahara to the coastal cities, transforming agriculture and life for millions. Under his rule, literacy rates soared from just 25% to nearly 90%. Education and healthcare became free for all citizens. Libyans received housing subsidies, and newlyweds were given money by the state to start their lives. By many metrics, Libya achieved the highest standard of living in all of Africa. There was no national debt, and the country had massive foreign reserves. For many Libyans, this was a golden age. But behind this prosperous facade, a darker reality was taking shape. Gaddafi's regime was built on fear. The revolutionary committees acted as a secret police, brutally suppressing any form of opposition. Critics of the regime, both at home and abroad, would often disappear, their fates unknown. Public executions were held to make an example of dissenters. Gaddafi's revolutionary vision extended far beyond Libya's borders. He saw himself as a leader of the developing world, a champion against Western imperialism. He funneled Libya's oil wealth into supporting various revolutionary groups and liberation movements across the globe. However, his definition of liberation movement was controversial. He provided funding, weapons, and training to a wide array of organizations, from Nelson Mandela's ANC in South Africa to groups the West considered terrorist organizations. This made him a pariah in the international community. His confrontational foreign policy led to direct conflict with the United States. In 1986, following a nightclub bombing in Berlin that was linked to Libya, President Ronald Reagan ordered airstrikes on Tripoli and Benghazi in an operation code-named Operation El Dorado Canyon. One of the bombs hit Gaddafi's compound, tragically killing his adopted infant daughter. This event only deepened his animosity towards the West. The situation escalated dramatically in 1988 with the bombing of Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie, Scotland, which killed all 270 people on board. International investigators traced the bombing back to Libyan intelligence agents. After years of denial and crippling United Nations sanctions, Gaddafi's Libya eventually accepted responsibility and paid billions in compensation to the victims' families. This marked a turning point. Facing international isolation and economic ruin, Gaddafi began a surprising pivot. In the early 2000s, Gaddafi sought to rehabilitate his image and bring Libya back into the international fold. He renounced his pursuit of weapons of mass destruction, dismantling his nuclear program. He began cooperating with the West in the fight against al-Qaeda and started opening up Libya's economy. Western leaders, once his staunchest critics, began visiting Tripoli again. It seemed as though the mad dog of the Middle East, as Reagan had called him, had been tamed. For a brief period, it looked like Gaddafi had successfully navigated his way back from pariah to partner, but this fragile peace would not last. In 2011, a wave of pro-democracy protests, known as the Arab Spring, swept across the Middle East and North Africa. When the uprising reached Libya, Gaddafi's response was swift and brutal. He dismissed the protesters as foreign-backed agitators and promised to hunt them down, house by house, alley by alley. As his forces closed in on the rebel stronghold of Benghazi, threatening a massacre, the international community intervened. Citing a responsibility to protect civilians, a NATO-led coalition began a campaign of airstrikes against Gaddafi's military. The intervention tipped the balance of the civil war. For months, Gaddafi evaded capture, releasing defiant audio messages and taunting the rebels. But his 42-year rule was crumbling. Finally, on October 20th, 2011, Gaddafi's convoy was hit by a NATO airstrike as he tried to flee his hometown of Sirte. He was found hiding in a drainage pipe by rebel fighters. The final moments of his life were chaotic, violent, and captured on a shaky cell phone video that was broadcast around the world. The man who had once been the undisputed king of Libya met a brutal and ignominious end at the hands of his own people. The legacy of Muammar Gaddafi is one of profound contradictions. Was he a revolutionary who used his nation's wealth to lift his people out of poverty? Or a brutal dictator who terrorized his citizens and sponsored violence abroad? Perhaps the truth is that he was both. He built a modern state with an impressive welfare system, but did so at the cost of freedom and human rights. The story of Gaddafi serves as a powerful and cautionary tale about power, revolution, and the complex character of a man who single-handedly shaped a nation for over a generation, leaving behind a legacy that is as controversial as it is unforgettable. Thank you so much for watching. What are your thoughts on Muammar Gaddafi's rule? Let me know in the comments below. And if you found this story interesting, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's most fascinating figures. See you in the next video.